Hello everyone, welcome to the second video of the Redux series. Today we're going to discuss about Redux Toolkit. We're going to learn a lot of stuff. So I hope that you have gone through the last video where we discussed all the fundamentals about Redux. We understood what Redux is, how different components of Redux works, different terminologies, when to use Redux, when not to use Redux and all the stuff. In this video, we are going to talk more about the implementation. We are going to talk about tools. We are going to talk about the ways that you can implement Redux into your application. Before we get started, I would like to request you to subscribe to this channel because I keep sharing a lot of great content in this channel. So please subscribe. So let's get started. What are we going to learn? We are going to learn multiple things in this video. First thing is like what Redux Toolkit is about, why is it important to learn. Then we'll talk about how to map the Redux terminologies we have learned last time with Redux Toolkit. Then we'll build an application with Redux Toolkit. It will be awesome how we build the application step by step, one step at a time, and we'll understand that how to employ the same philosophy to any application where you want Redux in. And then finally we'll recap the things, and with that we'll end this video. Alright, so first thing first, what's Redux Toolkit is all about and why is it important for us to learn? We learned about Redux in last video. It's great for state management, but there are few things that are around Redux since its birth. One thing was about people thought when Redux came in that React and Redux are kind of marry really well, which is true. But as we know from the previous video, Redux is not about React. Redux is an architecture that you can use without React. You can use with plain JavaScript application as well. But as we are talking about Redux along with React, what you also need to understand that React developers started adapting Redux into their application, and slowly they identified few issues with it. One issue was Redux store configuration seems to be complex. So it means that the way that you will be configuring the store so that the state get managed globally, that seems to be a bit complex way of doing it. We write too much of code to implement Redux. We need to maintain too many packages. We need to install too many packages to get the Redux implementation. And at times, we are not sure really what's going on under the hood. That's what the problem that most of the developers started with, and the debate started whether Redux is the thing that people should go for state management or there are other alternatives. Of course, there are other great alternatives that people can go ahead and start using, but the Redux team came up with a brand new approach, a modern approach to solve all these problems that stated over here. That is called Redux Toolkit or RTK. The best part of Redux Toolkit is its simplicity. The way you write Redux in your application, implement it in your application is quite simple. There are great API abstractions so that you just use them, write less code, better organized code, and you get things done. There are varieties of tools that you have and you get things done really well. So this is what we're going to see basically, friends, in this video where we'll be learning RTK. And I want you to learn with the end in mind. What exactly it means is first we are going to see the application that we'll be building. Then we will try to see how state can be managed in that application without Redux, without the Redux concept. Then we'll try to identify, okay, what will be the problem when that application grows? When is the time to introduce Redux in it? And then we'll start implementing it with code using RTK, that particular application. Alright, so I'm sure that you should be excited enough to get started with this, right? Alright, so let's get started with the application building. But before that, let us see the application. Alright, so this is the application that we'll be building. What is this application about? There are two panels we see over here. One is called colors and another one is called font. So whenever we click on a button, we will be changing the background color. By default, the background color is black. If you click on this white button, it is going to be white. If you click on this orange, it's going to be orange, and so on. And here, whatever the text you are seeing, by default, the font size is 16 pixel. But with this slider, we should be able to increase and decrease that font size the way that you would like to. So that's a very basic, very simple app that we'll be building using RTK. But this app is simple yet powerful, because we are going to see the concept of how Redux Toolkit and React come together to kind of solve the state management problem, and how Redux can be used in an application incrementally. Okay. Now, to develop this application, let us talk a bit about state management stuff. How different ways we'll be able to manage state, how different ways we'll be able to play around with states, and what kind of problem we might face. Okay, so if you have to build this application with React, if you have to think in React, you'll be thinking in terms of components. So for example, the colors is going to be a component, font is going to be a component. Finally, the colors and font should be composed within one component, should be used in a component, right? So let's see this hierarchy. So it means there will be outer component, let's say called canvas. Inside that, there is a component called colors. In the colors, we have this image, these buttons and things like that. And then you have another component called fonts, where you have this paragraph, you have this slider, and you have certain, paragraphs, heading and things like that, right? So this is how the components might look like. You might want to do it in React. How about the state? So one way that we can actually manage state, maybe at the canvas level, at the parent component level, we have the state managed in this way. Like we have color with the code and default value is the black. And then we have font with the default size is 16, right? Now, as and when I progress, for example, I click on this pink button, what I can do is like, I am going to change this color from black to pink, and that's what going to reflect over here, and things are going to change, right? So this is how the application may work in case I am going to manage and maintain the state in the parent component, like in canvas, and this is how the things are going to get work. But if you notice, like, what are the problems that we might identify over here? One problem is genuinely like, whenever I'm clicking on this button, I have to uplift the state to the parent component, where I have to change the state, and then I have to reflect the state into the child component back again. So it means like probably I have to have some kind of setter function over here, the set state, set color code, something like that. When I'm clicking on this pink, that particular method which is passed as a props to the child component, that gets invoked, which ultimately change the state at the parent, and this is passed to the child as a props, and that's what gets reflected as a regular, regular parent-child relationship in React, right? How you can actually lift the state up, you change the state, and again bring it down to with the props drilling to your children and do things. Now, for a simple application like this is fine, but if the application hierarchy grows, lifting up the state and again passing the changed state value as props down to the children might be cumbersome. It also might be problem like, in terms of debugging, like, who is changing state, at what point of time it is getting changed, how it is getting changed. Tracking that whole stuff might be cumbersome as the application grows. So this is one way, by the way, we can definitely do this. Similar thing with the font. If I increase, again, the font, it goes up, the font size get incremented. This particular thing comes over here and it reflects in the font size. So like that things will work. Another way that I can manage the state is like this. Same canvas, same color, same font, but let us split it. For example, this particular component manage the color code state, and this particular component manage the font size, right? Now there is no problem really of managing this entire state up in the parent, and there is no problem of lifting up the state over here, changing the state over here, passing through the props. All these problems are gone. So right now, how we'll be doing it? We'll be clicking on this pink, the color will change to pink, and it will reflect over here. The problem solved. But hey, hold on. What if this button set goes to another different component? I think the problem remains same again. So you have a separate component over here, you have a separate component over here, your actions are over here. Based on this action, you have to pass certain things. You have to do some certain things in the another component where the circle is, and there you have to change the color. So the more and more you break things into components, you have a problem of managing the state across, right? And again, when these components architecture, when the components references, when the components hierarchy really grows, you will be facing these problems more and more. For a simple application like this, you might not face it that much, but the simple application is good enough to demonstrate or to articulate that what kind of problem you might be facing. So if the application grows like this, where you have so many small components, within that there are so many other components composed, and all these components are composed within a bigger layout kind of thing, this is where you will be having trouble if you just back and forth pass the state across, and again through the props the values across. You might have a problem of tracing, like who is changing the state, where exactly is getting changed, and how are you going to maintain the things. That's where we will bring a centralized state concept, a centralized management of state. That's where we'll bring in Redux. Now remember, whatever we have learned in the previous video, right? We have a store where we manage the state. We have certain things called reducers, which actually change things, change the state in an immutable fashion based on the action that is dispatched from each of your components, get the updated state and change everything. You don't manage the state your way, so you don't have a chance of error. The management happened by the tool. So what we are going to do now, we are going to do code, and we are going to use RTK. We are going to use Redux Toolkit to build this exact application, but not in the way that we have seen right now, not managing the state component wise, not managing the state in a parent component, rather managing the state completely isolated way with Redux way, and see like how things work. All right, up for it. Let's start building. To get started with the application, first we will bootstrap React with Redux Toolkit. Now to do that, we can use the template, with create React app. So I'll be first doing like npx create React app, and then give the app name. We'll give something called canvas. I think that's what we are building. And after that, we'll give -- template, and then say Redux. So what it is going to do is it's going to create the React app using the Redux template. So you will see once the app is getting created, it is going to kind of download the stuff and get the things ready. So let it do that. And once it is done, we are going to see like what exactly it creates and get it to them one by one. Great. We have the app created. So if I go into ls, I have canvas. Let me go inside canvas. And the next thing that I'm going to do is ls over here. So I see like it has readme, package.json, code and everything. And that's the same thing I'm going to see in the Visual Studio Code. But before we get started, let's see what it has created. So I'm going to run yarn start. It's going to start the app in a while to start the development server. And I see the app is running over here. So I don't need this prompt anymore. I'm just going to get rid of this. So what I see over here is like there is a basic app already running, and I can do something like incrementing counter, decrementing things. Okay, that is all I can do. But how is this working basically? So this is a React application. If I see over here, this is a React application. This is the SRC, the basic create React app, if you're familiar with the basic structure. But there are two important folders that we need to focus on right now. The first folder is called app, where there is a store.js file. And the next one is called feature, which is having bunch of files inside this one. Okay, so we are going to look through this code a little bit, this structure a little bit, so you get familiar with it, and then we'll start writing our code. Okay, so the first thing is like, we will see like feature. So the way that directory or the files are structured in the Redux application is like, it's by feature, right? So there are two ways we can actually do this structuring. One is by functions or by features. So by functions means you have all the reducers together, all the actions together, all the components together. By feature means you want, say, your counter feature together with then the cart feature together, then the checkout feature together. So like that. So this is the feature thing that Redux follows. So you see all the files related to this feature that the template has given us. The template has created a basic application that we see over here, right? So we'll quickly go through like what exactly this, in these files are. So not everything, but at least at a high level. So the first file that we are going to open over here is called store. So the store is a basic, JavaScript file which imported a few things, and one thing that I can see clearly, something called reducer. So I don't want you to kind of get into too much deeper into understanding what is counter reducer at this point of time. But as you see the term reducer, you should connect that there is something called reducer. We have learned in the last video what it does. This is basically that reducer, and it is imported from a file called counter slice. Okay, so let us go straight away to the counter slice. Alright, lot of code. We are not going to go through all the code, but let's see one thing very high level. The counter slice created using a API called create slice. The create slice API is from the Redux Toolkit, as you see, and it takes three primary things that we're going to talk about today. One is the name, okay, name of the slice, something called an initial state, and then a reducers. Okay, these three things. What a slice is basically, so if you say in plain English, slice is something which actually compose your reducers, your actions, your selectors, all these things together. So you don't actually create multiple files like, one file for reducer, another file for action, another file for action types, another file for, managing your asynchronous call and things like that. You don't do all these things. You have one slice for one purpose. For us, this slice is available for managing this counter application, the counter feature. So we are just having everything related to the counter, all the reducers, actions, everything in the same file, which is called slice. And if you see the export from this slice, we'll be exporting these reducers. We'll be exporting each of these functions, the actions, and also we'll be exporting what and all we require. So what we are exporting, you see here, we are exporting the reducer. We are exporting all the actions that we have created. We are also exporting something called selectors, which we are going to see as we will be building this application. As we are exporting things from here, this is the same thing we are importing in the store, and we are telling store, hey store, you are dealing with this reducer. This is not the only reducer. Tomorrow I might have another reducer coming in, and you have to manage the state from that reducer. So if the reducer says that, hey, increment it by 1, the state changes, you have to manage the state. If it is saying that, decrementing by 1, you have to manage the state. So that's your job. That's how we are attaching the store and the reducers. Reducers are coming from the slice. Slice is exporting the reducers. Just remember this thing. Okay. Another thing that you need to remember is how this store is provided to the application. We just spoke about the store, reducer, action, things like the Redux side of it. How about the application side of it? How about the counter application? How counter application is getting this store? So for that, let us go to the entry point of this application, which is nothing but the index.js. So if you see over here, index.js, we are providing this store, the store that we have created inside the app, right? This store we are importing over here, and we are providing. How are we providing, by the way? We are providing using a provider, and this provider is coming from a library called React Redux, which is already included as part of this template. You don't install it, outside of it. You don't maintain it by yourself. So the template, the Redux template that you have installed just now, it comes all batteries included. Everything is included inside that. So you are providing the stored information to the app and all its children. So if we go to now app, what we'll see, like we'll start seeing the usage of this app. Is a simple thing. We just have this image over here, this particular image, and here it is, and then it has this counter component. The counter component is nothing but this entire stuff. So if I go inside the counter component here, I will start seeing the usages of the actions. You see these actions, the actions are getting imported from the counter slice, and these actions will be dispatched. We dispatch the action from the component, and then reducer does its job, like this action will be fire when this is kind of getting dispatched. The reducer is connected to our store we have just now seen, so that whatever the actions is getting performed and the reducer code is getting executed, based on that, this store knows how to manage the state. So this is how things are connected, right? From your component, you dispatch an action, and action is associated with the reducer. Reducer is connected to your store. So it means whenever there is an action happen, the reducer code will be executed, and the store knows after the execution of the reducer code what is the value of the state, and it knows to manage the state for you. You don't do anything for this one. RTK is going to do this for you. So this is how the connections in, and we have seen this counter app at a high level. Now it's time that we start building our canvas, right? So for that, what we are going to do, we are going to create another folder under features called canvas. So let us create something called canvas, and inside this we are building a canvas feature. So inside this we will keep all the code of our canvas feature, and then finally we'll be taking the canvas component, put it into the app.js so that it start appearing over here. We'll be creating the reducers, we'll be creating the slice, we'll be attaching that, connecting that to a store, and we'll make everything functional. Okay, so let's do that. Our application will use certain styles, so we need a CSS. So what we're going to do now is, like, I'll be creating a CSS file first inside this canvas folder. So let's say new file, we'll use the CSS module, right? So let's create a new file, canvas.module.css. And I'm not going to kind of explain like each of the CSSs that we'll be using in this application, because our focus area is not that. Our focus area is more about doing the Redux and the Redux Toolkit part. So I just copied the CSS portion over here. Anyway, this code will be shared with you in the description of this video, so feel free to go ahead and look into the CSS. But it is very simple. As you know, like, we have a canvas parent components, we have used some display flex, and then we have a colors component, we have just styled that. We have a font component, we have styled that. Inside the color component you saw a circle, we have styled that, and we have styled the button. As simple as that. So I just copy pasted this one because it was pre-coded, and I am going to use this throughout within our component. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is the heart of the Redux Toolkit application is creating a slice. Again, to go back, what is slice? Slice is basically a single entry point where you will be defining the initial state of the application. You will be defining the reducers, you will be defining the slice name, and then you will be exporting the reducers, the actions, the selectors, everything from the slice. So we'll explain each of this portion as and when we kind of write the code for slice, and you will be very clear about how to kind of code a slice. All right, so let's create a slice and we'll name it, let's say, canvas slice. Maybe that will be appropriate. So name is like canvas slice.js file. All right, so you have canvas slice.js file. Now let's start coding. So first thing you need is, like, to create a slice, you need the create slice API. So let's import that guy. So we need create slice from Redux Toolkit. All right, so we have done that. Then our application need an initial state. Okay, so it is kind of mandatory to give an initial state for our application, because we want to initiate the circle background color with a black color, if you remember when I showed you in the beginning, and the font with the 16 pixel. Okay, so let's initiate the state with color, and then we'll have code. The code for black is, that's it. And then we have another property to deal with, which is like font, and we'll have, say, size colon 16. That's what we are kind of getting started with. All right, so this sounds good. We have an initial state right now. Now the next thing that we'll be doing is creating the slice using this initial state, and we'll give certain other argument and parameters that we'll be seeing right now. Okay, so the API for creating a slice is create slice, which you have already imported. So let's create that and assign to a variable, say canvas slice equals to create slice. And if you see, this create slice will take always an object. Okay, within this object you define, these are the parameters that we have to kind of define. There are various parameters that it takes. In this video of Redux Toolkit, we'll introduce few parameters. In the future videos where we'll be learning the middleware and all other reducers and things like that, we'll be also talking about those parameters in the future videos. But right now let's focus on few crucial parameters like name, initial state, and reducers. Okay, so let's give this slice a name, because in your application there can be multiple slices, right? Based on the feature you will be writing the slice. So in this application you already have a canvas counter slice, and we are now writing canvas slice. So a slice can be identified with an unique name. So let's give a name to this particular slice, and then you have to provide the initial state to it. Initial state we have already defined, and then watch out this one, you have to give it a reducer. Okay, so this is by the object called reducers. Okay, so we have the reducers, and then here you will be defining the actions. We'll come to that. So far so good. We have this one, we have defined the canvas slice. So what we'll be doing is we can export this slice from here so that we can actually import it elsewhere. Okay, and then below we'll be exporting few other stuff that we'll see in a while. But let's see this one, like what exactly we did with the canvas slice. We have given a name, we have given the initial state, and we are about to define the reducers. So reducers again is an object where you will be defining all the actions that you think that your application is supposed to take from your React component, right? So what are the actions that we can think of for application? In our application, whenever you clicked on a button, we are supposed to change the background color of the circle. Whenever we have to slide, we'll want to change the font size of the text. So it means we'll be doing two actions. One is changing the color and changing the font. So let's create those actions. Now actions are nothing but the mere JavaScript function. All right. So we'll be giving the action a name, and the way that it gives is like in reducers. When you define the actions, reducers is an object. If it's a JavaScript object, it's a key value pair. The key is the function name, the action name basically. So it's a change color is the action name, and the value of this is the function that will be executed whenever the action gets performed. Okay, so change color can be any name, it can be any random name that you can give for your application, and then a function. Here I'm using the arrow function. This is a function that actually will execute whenever a dispatch happen from your React component. We're going to see that whenever dispatch happen from your React component, you will be executing this function, and whenever the function gets executed, whatever you write inside the code, that will execute, and that is going to change the state of it. All right, guys. So let's see this one. So this one, if we have already spoken this in your last video, when we introduced Redux, it's like action takes two things. One is the current state and the action name. If you basically action object, not only the name. In the action object, we have two things. One is called action type and the payload. So in this case, change color, this is the current state, of the color component, and then this action will all have what the change that you want to make, right? For example, it was the background color was black, you want to change it to pink, so your state will have the background color code as black, but the action payload will have the new color that you are going to change, right? So what we'll be doing is like, once we have this one, we will be changing like state dot color dot code equals to action dot payload. Okay, just look at this code. So it means that in the action payload, we have, if we pass pink, for example, your state color code become pink over here, right? So this is the change that we are going to do. Now if you see this one, in the first video we spoke about it, that whenever you are mutating the state, you don't mutate the state directly. You do like a copy of it with the spread operator, and then you mutate it. You change the state immutably. But what we are seeing here is like we are mutating the state directly. You might get this confusion. Hey, how is it possible? Because we told we are breaking the Redux rule. No, exactly no. Because the Redux toolkit uses a superb library called Immer, I-M-M-E-R, that handles the immutability in stores. So what Immer does basically, it works in a mode called draft mode. Though your signature look like that you are mutating the state directly, it is not. In the background, Immer makes sure the state doesn't get changed directly. It basically changes things in the draft mode. So it changes like immutably, and then it takes care of, doing all this, changes, making the immutability factors in and things like that, so that you don't worry about writing a code which look like, you're copying the existing object, and then you're doing this extra work of changing the code, and that's what Immer comes in, and Immer is already in. Okay, so now what we'll do is like, this is done. Now the next thing that we are focusing on is about the next action, which is like change font, right? So we'll do like similarly change font, and exactly same thing. Let's copy paste so that we can save some time in, so here instead of this one, it will be like font dot size equals to action dot payload. So now I have defined both the actions that I wanted to define, right? Now we have the reducers, we have the initial state, we have the name, everything is there in the canvas slice, and canvas slice I am exporting as well. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to define something called selectors. What is selectors? Selectors are again the normal JavaScript function is like getter functions which will return the current state at any point of time. So it means if you want to get the current state, the current color code, current size from your React component, you will be calling the selectors. So we also define selectors over here, and we export so the selectors can be used elsewhere in the application, right? So we do like export const say select color equals to state. What will you return here? You return state dot canvas dot color dot code, right? Similarly for font, export const select font equals to state, and then you return state dot canvas dot font dot size, right? So this is cool, right? So if you see like how exactly this is tying to our slice, it is tying to our slice using the slice name. So we are saying that, hey, I want to get from my global state, I want to get for this canvas slice, I have a state variable, state object called color. In the color I have a property called code. I want to select this one. Similarly for font, I have from my global state, I have a slice called canvas. If you see, this canvas is nothing but the name of the slice. I have something called font, and then I have a size. So at any point of time from your application, if you want to retrieve them, you can actually do that. So we have defined them. And then the last thing that we want to do is we want to export const both the actions that we have written. One is like change color, change font, okay, from the canvas slice dot actions, okay, because we have defined this in the reducers. It is available on the actions object or actions property of the canvas slice. These two actions are already available, so I am extracting them, doing the destructuring and returning them, and finally I can actually do a default export of our canvas slice dot reducer basically, canvas slice dot reducer. Okay, so did you get that, right? What exactly we did? That's all our slice. We have written the slice, right? So let's kind of quickly go over. A slice can be created using the create slice API. This API takes three things as of now. It takes more things. We'll discuss about those later. One is the name, second is the initial state, and third is the reducers. So in the reducers, what we do, we actually define the actions. How the actions get defined is the action name followed by the what will be done when the action gets executed. We can define as many actions as possible. Inside the action, what we do is like we want to change the state. For changing the state, we need the current state, and we need what we want to change to. That's why the payload is coming for, and we are actually changing this one. We are changing the state immutably, but it doesn't show here because RTK uses immer at the background. And then we also have two selectors because these are the two properties we are changing, and we need to get the current value of it anytime in the application. So we actually return the selectors. And finally, what we do, we export the actions, we export the reducer. So our first job is done. Now the next thing that we want to do, we want to wire it up in the state. So what we'll do is like we will go back straight away to our state, and we are going to wire this up. We are going to use this into our state. So let's go to our store where the state is there. So here in the store, what we'll be doing is we'll be doing import canvas reducer. So we have actually count reducer. We will be good. Let's see the name we have given. Okay, so it is a default export. So basically you can give any name while importing. So we'll give canvas reducer from same path basically, but the change in the features slash we'll go to canvas slash we'll go to canvas slice. All right, so we have this one, and then the next code that you have to add is basically give a property over here, any name you can give canvas, and then you give here like canvas reducer, right? So this is how you are varying up your reducer slice with the store. So this is the work that we have done. So now we have reducers, we have actions, we have selectors, we have a store knows about reducers, all these things are done. Now what we can do, basically we can actually start writing our components, our UI side of code, and so that we can actually start leveraging whatever we are actually using here. We can retrieve them and show it into a component. Okay, so if you remember, if you recollect, the application that we have promised to build is like we had a color component, we have a font component, and both the color and font component are used inside a canvas component, right? So let us go ahead and create a new file called canvas.jsx. And inside the canvas.jsx, what we are going to do, we are going to create a simple React component. Okay, so I am using it because I'm not typing it, because it's a very simple component that we are actually creating here, but I'll be explaining this one, though I am not kind of typing it. So if you see this one, I have imported the styles that I have created before, like canvas module.css, because I'm using that canvas style from here. If you know about the CSS module, you can actually import the CSS styles as a module and you can actually use it. So this is how we are using. You can write your normal CSS, or you can write Tailwind or anything that you want. So this is how we are doing, and we have two components. One is color and then this font. I have not written color or font, either of color or font yet, right? So we have imported color, we have imported font, we have to write those, and then I'll be saving this one. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's start getting error, and then we'll kind of rectify those error, right? So we'll go to app.js file, and in the app.js file, what we are going to do, we are going to change this app.js file. We don't want any of the existing application to be shown, so let's change this one. We don't want this counter. We don't want, let's remove the unnecessary items. We don't want any of these things. So this header to header will be removing. Yeah, let's remove this also. Let's remove this also. I think this is good. Now what we'll do is like the canvas we have created, right? So we'll do import canvas from, so let's do like this is in the app.js, right? So dot slash we have feature, then slash canvas slash canvas.jsx, right? So this is what we have. So we have taken this canvas from canvas.jsx, and then what we are going to do over here is we are going to use this canvas. Of course it will give error because inside canvas there are two more components that we are using. Those two components are not there. Okay, so the dot color and dot font are not there yet. That's the error we are getting, and we are going to fix that. All right, so let's create dot color first. Okay, so we'll go to canvas, and then we will do new file. Let's create canvas.jsx, sorry, color.jsx, because canvas we already have color.jsx, and then let's create font.jsx. Okay, now in the color.jsx we can actually create things like import color equals to a simple component. Let us create return, and let's use like something like this. And then what we'll do is like export default color, right? So we have this color component ready right now. Okay, so we have some error. Let us fix this error. Sorry, this is not import, it's const. Yeah, so you have this color component done. Now the next thing that we want to do is like font. Similarly, Control A, and then we'll go to font. Oh, I have made a mistake. I have written color in font, so just change this one to font. I think that's better. And then yeah, we have font, so you just need color now. So you'll go Control C, we go to color, Control V, just change this to color, change this to color. It's okay, and here you come as a font actually. Okay, so we have both color and font. So if I write font over here, and if I write say color over here, so these are the two components that I have already. Okay, now what we can do is like we'll be building on top of it. We'll start building things right now. So let's start building things. By the way, you see that this text are coming, but there is a typo. Let's fix that. It's font. So Control S. So we have both color and font, both the components are working. Now we'll go to the color component and try to get the things done. Okay, so let's start writing the basic pieces of it so that we understand how we are going to use the state data. So here, one of the other library that we'll be using called React Redux. I told like React Redux is a library which will actually set up your React component to use all the Redux related stuff, right? It is binding your React components with the Redux interfaces, right? So React Redux is already bundled. If you go to package suggestion, you'll be able to see that. However, you need to know a few hooks that are coming from the React Redux which are very useful. So let's look into those hooks first. So import use selector, and then we have use dispatch. So these are the two hooks that we need to know, right? So we have imported this one. How they will be using, you remember we have created a selector inside the slice. So if we pass the selector inside this use selector hook, we always get the recent value of the state. We are actually selecting the recent value of the state. Use dispatch, as the name suggests, if we want to dispatch an action, then we'll be using the use dispatch. Okay, we are good so far. Then the next thing that we'll be importing over here is those two actions. So we have change color and we have change font. Yeah, from the canvas slice we have imported both the actions, and then of course we can actually import the styles, and we are using a logo, so let's import those things. I'll just copy those stuff over here so that I don't have to write. All right, so this is done. Now here, this is where I want you to pay attention, like how do we get the data, the current data of the color, because we have to show the current data of the color. To get that, so const color equals to, I told that use selector is the hook that you have to use, and you pass what do you have to pass here? You have to pass here the select color, right? That's what you have to pass. And then the next thing that you will be doing is like you will be doing a dispatcher. So you'll come to this use selector, and then we'll be doing this dispatcher. Okay, but this select color we have to first import. So let's import this select color, because select color is another thing that we are actually exporting from the slice. So we'll be you are importing here, and the select color you pass it over here. So now you have always the current value of the color. By the way, we don't need change font here because this is just the color component. We need it in the font component, so we'll be using it over there. So I'm just deleted this one. So now you have the color. Next thing is the dispatch. So let's do const and then do dispatch equals to, we'll do use dispatch. That is where we get the dispatch function. So use dispatch returns a dispatch function which we can call by passing these actions, and this action will be then executed, right? So that is how the things are wired up. Now what we'll be doing is, I'm not going to write the entire code inside the return. Rather, let me just take the code that I've already written and we'll be explaining that. That will save some time. I think that is better because most of the code that we have written here. So what we are doing over here, just pay some attention over here. So let's go one by one. So first thing first, what we are doing is we are having a div passing a class name from our style, the CSS module. Then we have bunch of divs. So one div is showing the image, that logo, right? The Redux logo. And if you see here, the background color, we are using this particular color, the current color. So it means if there is an action happen which changes the global state, this selector automatically gets you the current color. So this particular thing automatically change over here. All right. So this is the crux of it. Then the next thing, if you see the button set, I have this white button, I have an orange button, I have an yellow button, I have a pink button. Clicking on each of this button, there is an on-click handler. What I am doing, I am dispatching the change color action. I am dispatching the change color action with a payload. The payload is the nothing but a color name that I wanted to change to. Alright. So this payload is a white color, orange color, yellow color, pink color. You can also use the hexacode or RGB over here. Now, what happened whenever there is a button click, I am dispatching the change color action. The change color action is in my slice. What exactly is doing is taking this particular payload, which is the new color, and setting that color code. As simple as that. And this is immutably set. This particular things change the state in the store, and we are done with that. And then what happened is like this guy automatically kind of gets called once the state gets changed to get the recent color. Select the recent color, and this recent color is always used as a background color of this particular div where we have the image. So this is how the code is. And so let's run this code and see like how this code going. So we have run this code, and what do we see? We are seeing this color component over here. Now let's click on white and see. You see the white color gets changed, orange, yellow, pink. This is a great thing, right? So you are not managing any state in your component. The colors is not managing any state in your component. The color state is managed globally. In the store, what we are doing is basically we are dispatching merely some actions with the payload that we have to actually change to. We have a selector which always select the current value of it, and that value we are using to set. It's very simple thing. Now here I want to show you a cool stuff. Okay, so let me bring my this thing, the Chrome debugger tool, set it up over here, and then make it little bigger for you. So here I have installed an extension for Redux. You can also do that. It is available for free. So if you install this Redux the extension, you can actually see, you can actually debug, right, what exactly happening with all the state changes. So let me refresh this guy. So this is refreshed. Now I will be changing it to white, I'll be changing it to orange, I'll be changing it to yellow. Now if you see, let me just make it a little bit bigger so that we can actually see this guy, and we can actually see this one. So if I am the inspector mode, and when I start changing thing, you see for each of the state changes, I see like what is the state at this point of time, what it changed to. So when I actually go to something else, what it changed to. Now great part what is like you can actually replay that entire state. So you see all the state changes are getting replayed over here. You can go ahead and actually reset, revert. You can debug everything. You can also see other views like this is the action at this point of time that happened. The type is canvas / change color. Do you see that? So if I go to my slice code, it's basically nothing but the slice name / this particular action name, right? So this is what happened, and this is the payload that is got passed. This is some chart representation of it. This is the raw JSON object representation of it. You can see the diff, like what it was before, like it was yellow, and from there it become pink. You can trace the thing, right? Like what exactly the code portion that made this change happen. So please use this debugger, please use this tool, because this is going to help you in debugging like what exactly happening with the state, how the state is going to change, though it is centralized. But what is changing it, every portion of it you can actually do through it, right? So please use this extension. The link is there in the comment section of this video. Use that extension and kind of try to see like what exactly happening. All right, so we are done with the colors component. Now next thing that we are going to do, we are going to code the font component. And now by now you would have understood that it is going to be almost similar stuff that whatever we have done so far. But let's see the code. Okay, so again, I am not going to write this code in its entirety. What I'll be doing over here, I'll be using the font code, but I'll be explaining it definitely. And while I'm explaining it, it will be a recap of exactly whatever we do in the colors code. So first we have imported use selector, use dispatch. Here we are dealing with font, so we will be imported the use selector use dispatch. We are dealing with font, so we will be importing change font and select font because we don't have anything to do with colors. And now for selecting the font, current font at any point of time, I am using the use selector hook, and then I have a dispatch, use dispatch hook, which give me the dispatch function. This is a normal React component. But take a look, like whenever there is this is a slider basically. So whenever there is a slider change, I am actually now dispatching the change font action. And what is happening over here, I am dispatching with the current value of the slider. So from 16 pixel, if I slide to 17, 18, 19, I am actually dispatching that. So that changes into our slice. So our change font gets called. It is actually now setting the new size to this one. Great. Now this new size is always available over here because we are actually taking this one. So for the styles.font we are doing over here, and then here font size we are doing this font size equals to the font.pixel. So it will be like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, that kind of pixel. It will be like keep going. So I hope that this is clear. So I've saved it. You see this one. Now if I just increase, so you see it is increasing. If I just decrease, you see it is decreasing. And you see over here the states are also kind of changing. You can see this one, the change font. So change font, if I go to actions, it is 15. If I go to 3, now from there, 13, 12. So every state, everything that you do, everything you can trace over here. You can actually play the entire stuff from the beginning. So you see that whatever you have done is kind of getting played. So this is a great stuff that you can actually take advantage of. So how was it, guys? I mean, we have built something where none of our components, neither canvas, color, font, has to manage any state at all. The state is managed globally in the store over here. How the store get the state? The store get the state from the slice, because slice has all the definition, single file for a feature. For counter we had a slice which came out of the template. For canvas, single feature, one slice. In this slice we have multiple things. What we have the reducers where the actions are defined. All right, and we are exporting this reducer anyways, so that we can actually connect that to our store. We have done that. Store has the knowledge of the reducer, and store has the knowledge of all the reducers, not only one reducer. So every reducer you can actually define over here. We'll see some of the complex use cases in the upcoming videos, but here maybe the 90% of it, like what we'll be doing with Redux and the RTK, it's already here. Then we are exporting all the actions. All the selectors are the one through which you can get the current value of the state value. Then you are exporting all the actions. Finally we are exporting the reducers. Then in our component level we are using something called React Redux, because React Redux provides us two hooks. One is to get the value from the selectors that we have used, and to dispatch the action. This is the only use. So dispatching the actions happen by passing the action. So we have imported the action from the slice and passing the payload. It will automatically do our state changes because we have written that logic into our reducer. It is doing immutably, but we are using the immer internally. So why we are not seeing it like, as such, doing the spread operator and things like that. So that's how everything is connected. That's how everything is working. So if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. And before we end this video, I want to give you a task. If you can do that and share with me as a comment your GitHub repo. I can actually look into it, but this base code you will be able to find from my GitHub repo, which is there in the comment section of this video. So you can actually fork that and start building on top of it. What you need to do next is like have one like font type over here, another control. Using the font type, you will be able to change the font. This is a very basic font. You can change to any font from the Google font. And then what will you have another opacity component over here. So changing your opacity, you will be able to set the opacity, color opacity from say 0 to 100 for a selected color. So can you add those two controls for color opacity, for fonts, a particular type of font, and then wire it up with your state reducers action. Do this exercise. If you do this exercise hands-on from ground up, I think you are going to learn a lot of stuff. If you are stuck, send me, like where you stuck, catch me on Twitter or comment on this YouTube video. Maybe you can actually send me the code, like where exactly you're stuck. I'm going to help you out. All right. So thank you very much for watching this one. Up next in the Redux series, we are going to talk about middleware. We are going to see, like right now we are handling the state quite locally, but if you have to make an asynchronous call and we have to get data and you have to update the store, the state object and all, how are you going to do that? We are going to see that in the next video. Until then, take a great care of yourself and keep learning. And please like, comment and share this video so that others also come to know about it. Thanks a lot.